I didn't get HIV in a nightclub. I didn't get it from a hookup. I didn't get it from recklessness or a wild lifestyle. I got it from hope, from a message that looked harmless, from believing that, for once, something good was finally walking into my life. If I had ignored that DM, I would still recognize the woman I used to be. The night I made that post, I remember staring at my phone longer than usual. I was tired of pretending I didn't want love, tired of acting like I was okay being alone when I wasn't. I was 30 years old, a woman with dreams, plans, and a heart that still believed in decent men. So I typed it. 30-year-old female looking for a serious relationship with a decent man. Nothing dramatic, nothing desperate, just honesty. I posted it and dropped my phone beside me, not expecting much. By morning, my inbox was flooded. Messages from men who clearly hadn't read my post, men who wanted fun, men who wanted pictures before conversation, men who spoke in shortcuts and emojis and entitlement. Then there was him. His message was different, clean, respectful, confident. He introduced himself properly, told me what he did for a living, said he was an engineer. No pressure, no flirting too hard. He asked if I'd like to go on a proper date, a restaurant, not a come over. That should have been my first warning, because evil doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it arrives well-dressed and polite. Our first date was on a normal day that should have remained forgettable. He picked me up around Popeye La Paz. I remember adjusting my dress in the Uber mirror, reminding myself not to get carried away. We went to living room restaurant. He pulled out a chair for me, asked real questions, listened when I spoke. He looked healthy. That detail matters. He didn't look sick. He didn't look weak. He didn't look like danger. He coughed occasionally, and when I asked, he laughed lightly and said renovations were happening in his house. The dust had irritated his chest. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? The date went well, too well. At the end of the night, he paid for my Uber home, texted to make sure I arrived safely. Green flags everywhere, or so I thought. We kept talking, every day, calls that lasted hours, conversations about family, fears. He made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. A few days later, he mentioned the renovations again and invited me over. I hesitated, but he reassured me. He sounded sincere, familiar, safe. I went. That decision became the dividing line of my life. Before him, after him. His house looked normal, clean, lived in, nothing strange. We laughed, cooked together, shared stories. One visit turned into many. Weeks passed. Then my body began to change. At first, it was small things, fatigue that didn't make sense, fevers that came and went, weight loss I couldn't explain. Friends complimented me at first. "You're slimming down." I smiled while something inside me screamed that this wasn't right. I was always sick, always tired, always cold. I went to the hospital expecting malaria, maybe stress. When the doctor asked if I wanted to do an HIV test, I almost laughed. Why would I need that? I asked. I trusted my life. I trusted him. The day I got my result, the world didn't end loudly. It ended quietly, in a small room, with a piece of paper, with a word that refused to make sense. Positive. I stared at it, waiting for the letters to rearrange themselves into something else. They didn't. The nurse kept talking, but I couldn't hear her. My ears were ringing. My heart felt like it had dropped into my stomach. I wasn't promiscuous. I wasn't careless. I wasn't reckless. So how? There was only one answer. and I already knew it.
When I told him, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. At first, he denied everything. Then he went silent. Then, finally, he admitted he didn't know his status, that he hadn't tested in a long time, that he never intended to hurt me. Intent didn't matter anymore. My life had changed permanently. I was now a woman who would take medication every day for the rest of her life. A woman who would have to explain her status to future partners. A woman whose dreams of simplicity had been replaced by hospital visits, pills, and fear. I cried in ways I didn't know were possible. I hated my body. I hated my phone. I hated that app. I hated that message. I hated myself for trusting. I replayed every moment, every laugh, every kiss, looking for the exact second my life was stolen. People say HIV is manageable. What they don't tell you is the grief. The grief of the woman you used to be. The grief of the future you assumed was guaranteed. Some days the anger is so loud I can barely breathe. I want the world to know what he did, what happened. I want accountability. I want justice. I want my old life back. But mostly, I want people to understand this. Danger doesn't always look dangerous. Sometimes it looks like a decent man with a polite introduction and a restaurant date. Sometimes it looks like hope. After the diagnosis, nothing felt real anymore. I would wake up in the morning and lie still, waiting for the panic to return, because it always did. Some days it came quietly, like a heavy fog pressing on my chest. Other days it came violently, with shaking hands and breath that refused to settle. The mirror became my enemy. The woman staring back at me looked like me, but she wasn't me. Her eyes were dull. Her smile was forced. Her body felt like a stranger I no longer trusted. Every cough scared me. Every fever felt like a countdown. Every ache made me wonder if this was how it ends. The hospital visits became routine too quickly. Counseling sessions, blood tests, explanations I wasn't ready to hear. You'll need to take this medication every day, the doctor said gently, as if gentleness could soften the blow. Every day. Forever. The pill was small, but the meaning of it was enormous. That pill was proof that my life had been divided into before and after. I took it for the first time with tears running down my face. Not because it hurt, but because it meant this was real. I didn't tell many people. How do you explain this kind of pain without watching people flinch? I watched conversations change the moment HIV was mentioned on TV. I saw the jokes, the whispers, the judgment disguised as concern. And I wondered, will this be how they see me if they know? So I stayed quiet. I smiled in public and cried in private. At night, the thoughts were loudest. Who will ever love me now? What if I never have children? What if people find out? What if this defines me forever? Sometimes I would open my phone and scroll through old pictures. Me, laughing, carefree, unaware that something terrible was already on its way. I mourned that woman like she had died. He tried to stay in my life. That was the cruelest part. He apologized, said he felt guilty, said he didn't know, said he wished he could take it back. But how do you forgive someone whose presence reminds you of everything you lost? Every time I saw his name pop up on my phone, my stomach turned. I didn't need his pity. I didn't need his guilt. I needed my life back, and he couldn't give me that. So I cut him off. Not out of revenge, but out of survival.
The weight loss continued. People asked questions. I lied. I said stress. I said work. I said anything except the truth, because the truth felt too heavy to carry out loud. There were days I didn't want to get out of bed, days when the idea of a future felt like a cruel joke, days when I wondered if love was worth this much pain. But somewhere between the tears and the pills, something unexpected happened. I didn't die. My body didn't give up on me. The medication worked. Slowly, very slowly, I began to stabilize. And with that stability came a quiet question. If I'm still here, what am I supposed to do with this life? Healing didn't come like a miracle. It came in fragments, in days where I managed to eat without forcing myself, in moments where I laughed and realized, wait, that laugh was real. I started reading, learning, understanding HIV beyond the fear and the stigma. I learned that the virus didn't make me dirty or broken or unworthy. I learned that I was still a woman, still capable of love, still deserving of joy. That knowledge didn't erase the pain, but it weakened its grip. There were still dark days, days when I thought about telling my story publicly, not for sympathy, but for truth, to warn others, to remind people that HIV doesn't always come from recklessness. Sometimes it comes from trust. Sometimes it comes from believing in someone who didn't even know themselves well enough to protect another human being. I wrestled with anger, with the desire to expose, to scream his name into the world. But I realized something important. My story is bigger than him. This is not about revenge. This is about visibility. About the woman reading this right now who thinks it could never happen to me. I was her. I am learning to live again, to plan again, to hope again, carefully but honestly. I take my pill every day, not as a reminder of what I lost, but as an act of defiance. I am alive. I am still here, and my life is not over. Final words. If you are reading this and you are living with HIV, hear me clearly. You are not alone. You are not worthless. You are not your diagnosis. And if you are dating, trusting, loving, please, please protect yourself. Ask questions. Test together. Don't let politeness cost you your peace. Some messages change your life forever, but so does choosing to survive. Thank you so much for watching and for all your love and support. If this story touched you, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps this message reach someone who truly needs it.